I am Netuversitan. Welcome to part 3 of this arc involving the ring, one of the more artistic of the fingers. And also... okay, I'll save this for the rest of this lore breakdown. Last time we checked, Virgilius, the Red Gaze, travelled to a building where the ring was gathering. Largely because Garnet, a rookie fixer, who is in the orphanage that he visited periodically, was worried about Lapis, a girl that he was raised alongside with in that orphanage. That same orphanage that was destroyed by Tomeri and Iori the Purple Tear 6 months prior. They found art classrooms and mime artist exhibits, the latter of which attacks them, alongside the ring thugs. Then the docent, wearing a mask that wouldn't look out of place on the Phantom of Mardi Gras, found them. Hard to know who was in deeper, Garnet or that docent. Virgilius didn't seem that bothered, his face as expressionless as it usually is, while Garnet had his weapon ready. The docent, she didn't seem that angry at them. Apparently, if it was anyone else that spotted them, they'd be in serious trouble. Virgilius understood this was a docent, a guide to this twisted art gallery. Apparently, she didn't mind, as they weren't her favourites. She then readied her right-hand sword, telling her guests that deconstruction is where art begins. And as she was stabbing one of the mime artists, she said that it was a bit too plain anyway. While Virgilius appears to have seen this all before, Garnet was visibly disturbed by this psychotic behaviour. However, this docent amused herself by what she was thinking, telling them not to let Jun-sun know that she said that, as this Jun-sun apparently liked the musicians of Bremen. Now, in case it isn't clear, Jun-sun means dot with a feminine prefix. Basically, she was calling him Dotty. I mean, what does that make you then? Nutty? There's some droppings from squirrels that are less nutty than you are. I mean, stay away from those with an allergy to that. You'd kill them just by poking them with one of your fingers. I say this as she killed the other mime artist exhibits with a few swings of her swords. Seriously, was this docent an art critic? What does this show? Well, it shows that she at least has some standards. As far as I'm aware, the ring doesn't use musical instruments made from human body parts. Anyway, with her hands dripping with blood, she asked if Virgilius was the one who started vandalizing the items, seeing the exhibits not as humans, but as inanimate objects, possessions. Virgilius was as expressionless as he was silent, adamant about this. The docent then went on to say that whatever the ring has done, they didn't kill anyone. In fact, bringing in the pieces of art was a lot of work, and they aren't even trying to act sorry about the damage they caused. Well, that's because they aren't nutjob artists. Apparently, according to a certain green-haired junkie in the library, insanity is an occupational hazard as far as art is concerned. Garnet was surprised by this statement, removing the animal mask, revealing someone wearing makeup, who was in tears. It was revealed at that point why they were unable to speak. Their mouths were sewn shut, along with their ears. This hit Garnet hard, asking if Lapis was also one of the exhibits. Then we flash back to, well, it was certainly a time before the White Nights and Dark Days. That much I can determine. Garnet was licking a lollipop and considered it too bitter, much to his disgust, asking why anyone would eat it. Lapis, who was there with him, told him that he asked for one. Apparently, it was because Lapis always keeps it in her mouth, and so Garnet thought that it was tasty. But it turned out that Lapis prefers bitter candy, as the sweeter it is, the sooner it melts. Bitter candy can be preserved, as she suckles it away, little by little. Well, it lasts longer, and yeah, it appears to be an acquired taste. Lapis wants to try the flavours of the world when she grows up. Well, let's hope he didn't go to District 23, as you'd likely go crazy trying to find flavour there. The locals certainly do. Then they observe the city from the top of the tree, or at least as much of it as they can see, as parts were obstructed by nearby buildings. Then Garnet came back to reality, thinking of Lapis and how she might be in a similar position to this exhibit. He told this person that he'd have them untied, looking for his knife. Yeah, clearly he had a backup weapon concealed somewhere. Well, it'd be stupid not to have a backup weapon, even though it probably wouldn't be that much in the way of offensive capability against some of the worst threats out there. Virgilius told him not to bother, but Garnet largely ignored him, seeing that what was going on was cruel. Far too cruel. How can what happened be? This docent was asking what he was doing, then had a thought that made her laugh. She then decided to play mind games with Garnet, observing that he's new to the fixer business, saying this as Garnet was removing the bindings on this exhibit. She saw this as odd, that he's barely got his license, yet how could a total tyro, or novice, team up with a monster of a man that is Virgilius? Sounds like she knows something that he doesn't. Garnet ignored this, too focused on freeing this exhibit. When he was about to say that they were free, he was held in place and shouted at by the exhibit, asking why he was getting in the way Garnet was puzzled by this reaction. Apparently this was part of some ring initiation rites, one that he ruined. The docent looked slightly amused seeing this exhibit's eyes cloud over. The exhibit begged Miss Pablo, the name of this docent, not to do something. Miss Pablo was readying her sword, saying that until her pupils relax, there won't be anything inside. Virgilius then intervened by slashing upwards, breaking the mask, revealing a scarred face beneath it. Virgilius looked at her blankly, as Miss Pablo seemingly was amused by this action, smiling psychotically. Garnet was disturbed by what he was seeing, asking what was she. And considering that the broken mask had something dark come out of it, which involved a lot of scrunching, snapping, and crackling noises, it would appear that she was wearing a distortion. This distortion came in the form of a shadowy figure. Well, it's something shadowy, bursting out of the shattered mask. She was still dripping in blood, some hers, some others. And why do I believe this was the distortion? Well, this suspicion is reinforced by Virgilius mentioning the purple tear. Apparently, he understood what she meant by some undisclosed statement. Well, she clearly kept in contact with him at some points after the destruction of the orphanage. Garnet didn't understand, but Virgilius did. She knew that they won't find Lapis there. I suspect that this darkness distortion swallowed her up, much as it was swallowing Miss Pablo up. So they walked out, with Miss Pablo, or at least what's left of her, laughing as if she was a gender-bent version of the Joker, shouting, "Reflect me! Keep me in your gaze! I have seen! I have seen! Seen I have!" Garnet was looking back, at least until this point. Then he looked ahead as she said, "Drops of blood were running down your window. When the time arrives, clutch me in your gaze once more." Then the darkness swallowed her up, enough for her to stop speaking. And that's it for now. But what did Iori mention to Virgilius prior to this? As for what Miss Pablo said, was this just to mess with Garnet's head? Or does it indicate a dark past, like all colour fixers seem to have? Perhaps he's another Smoke War veteran. As for Garnet, it's clear that he's learned a valuable lesson here, or at least that's what it appears to be. This lesson is, don't get too close to anyone. There are too many ways for people to die in the city. One day, someone might be there. Another day, they could become a fine goo on the wall for the sweepers to clean up. If they're found in any way at all. As for what Virgilius was really feeling, perhaps he knew that Lapis was swallowed up by the darkness of that distortion, like Miss Pablo was. This darkness surrounds what appears to be a shattered mirror. Yeah, distortions don't always make sense. Those of you who have been looking at the distortion detective, or at least my lore breakdown of it, will understand that. And in case it isn't obvious by now, Virgilius is a sufferer of PTSD. Yeah. If he is a veteran of the Smoke War, war can do that to those participating in it. And it appears that some distortions can take the form of masks or other works of art, which is something that fits into the Ring's twisted style. Yep, she is still working her warping magic on the city, and no, I'm not talking about Iori. She's not capable of doing this on a large scale. Yeah, those of you who have gone through the main story of Library of Ruina will know what, or rather who, I'm talking about. As for the initiation rites, if the rings involves posing as exhibits in some deranged art gallery, what would the other finger's initiation rites be? Now with the thumb, it'd probably be something relatively simple, as in obey the order without question and follow thumb etiquettes, likely being instructed in that in advance. And those who want to keep their tongues, or indeed their lives, would do well to memorize it and adhere to it. Let's see, the index, that's probably simpler still. Follow the prescripts, or a proxy will be sent to be killed. Or rather, a proxy will be sent to kill you. Yeah, that makes much more sense. Well, relatively speaking. Not sure about the middle, although it might involve something to do with social Darwinism, based on Tanya. Let's see, the pinky, if they're a bunch of masochists, probably something to do with pain and how to tolerate it. Those who are able to do it, they're in. Those that don't, well, they die. It's clear that the Purple Tear has some plans involving the Red Gaze, and whatever those plans are. It'll likely involve him having his head messed with by her, along with other pawns being sent to, well, test him. If indeed sending Tomeri and then attacking him was a test. Well, attacking him and the orphanage. We are, of course, talking about someone who thinks many steps ahead in many different directions. Yeah. Like someone playing 5-dimensional chess. She can visit other realities, where events happen differently, which explains why she took the measures involving the Black Silence, other than the fact that he was just a junkie wasting away at that time with nothing better to do. At least until she gave him a reason to pursue vengeance, giving him somewhere to begin. It's unclear how many pawns she has, and it's unlikely we'll find out the exact number, as it leaves some space for additional characters that she can manipulate. Yeah, I needed to add a bit of filler, along with some theory crafting, as it'd be a little shorter than it is if I didn't do that. Let's see what Book 5 has for us. Until next time. Hail the rabbit!